Welcome to the Anything and Everything podcast, a show about anything, everything, and all that's in between. You heard it, all of the things.
Every single one.
Today, you may have noticed, we have a slightly different setup. We're trying something. We're experimenting with something. We love it. We hope you love it. I'm Rowan. Tyler, say hello.
That's me. I'm Ty. Hi. It's nice to see you. Welcome back for another episode of the Anything and Everything podcast. And we are kicking today off with, again, going back to Romeo and Juliet. We promise you it will not just be Romeo and Juliet for the entirety of this podcast, but Act 2, Scene 4, where we left off.
It's just a long play. It's a long play and it's a good play.
It's a long play. We've got a lot of ideas for the future and, remodeling the show. We're so excited.
A lot of brainstorming going on over here. We're very excited for some of the things we've got brewing under the surface. But until then, we've got Romeo and Juliet for you. Today we've got, as Ty said, Act 2, Scene 4. It's a biggie. It's truly a biggie. A lot to unpack here. But before we get into that, we've got a question. We've got a question for you all. Today's question: what is your ideal career?
Would I like? Am I going to answer this first, or shall you?
Go on.
Ideal career. It's tough to know. I mean, I've got so many things on the plate right now, and there are so many things I could be, especially at our age. It's ridiculous. Were I to go down the college path, which is somewhat likely, it'd probably be a psychiatrist, because I'm just fascinated with people. As I've mentioned on our other podcast, Listening In, a new episode should be dropping either tonight or tomorrow night by the time of recording. So go listen to that. Oh, also,
Go listen.
Before I let you go, I'm gonna take up all the space here, and I'm gonna say, hey,
take it all up.
Remember that you can see us not live, but you can see us in person on the YouTube channel, which, if you're watching us from there right now, you should definitely subscribe to. It's very fun. We put a lot of effort into it, somewhat, kind of.
There's a desk. You can see the desks that I'm caressing right now.
That's how... That desk is going to need to go into therapy after this show.
I'm not paying for it, so good luck. Yeah, make sure you check out the YouTube, check out Listening In. It's a lot of fun over there. I enjoy that project very much.
All links in the description for all of our socials and everything. But yes, what is your career path?
Okay, like you said, got so many interests, so many things that I'd love to do. You mentioned the college path. I would very much not want to go to college. I've decided that recently. That could change, but as of right now, I'm firmly not going to college. But pardon the background noise. Oh boy.
I hear nothing.
Great, love to hear it. Or not hear it, but I'm ching. Anyway.
Oh, the comedy.
I think my ideal career would be like a performer of some kind, actor, musical theater. I'd love to go into like classical acting, Shakespeare acting. That could be so much fun.
You better invite me to a performance, or I swear to God, Ron.
I absolutely will. I think actually I'm going to broaden that a little bit. I hate this question. Why did I choose this question? I think some job in the theater industry as a whole, because I do have an interest in like directing and behind the scenes stuff, but also put me on a stage and I would be happy.
Camera woman?
What?
Sorry, that was a whole bunch of garble. Camera woman?
No.
So not just all.
Like not all behind the scenes, but like I think stage managing could be cool. Directing, choreography. I'd love to be a choreographer. Or like a director of some kind. I think that could be really fun. I had a director tell me once that he thinks that I have a director brain.
Do you suffer from stage anxiety much, or no?
I don't think I do. I don't with dance. I know I don't with. I'm very comfortable on a stage when it comes to dance. I have never really been on a stage when it comes to like any of the other aspects of performing, like singing or acting.
Sure.
So I don't really know how really that anxiety would be, but I can't imagine it'd be all that much, seeing as I'm very comfortable dancing.
Well, I was gonna say, if you feel stage fright when doing your dance, that's like the perfect job for someone who's an expert in their field but feels that overwhelming stage fright, as many people do. But
yeah, I would
tangent.
So that aside, should we just go ahead and hop right into it?
Yeah, nothing is stopping us.
Yeah,
Summary.
nothing is stopping us.
Would you like to read it or
Summary.
shall I?
You go on.
Actually, I read it last time, and would you
Oh,
like
did
to...
you?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, let me pull this up because it got lost. And
She's got
perfect.
it.
Okay,
There we go.
I've got it. So, Act 2, Scene 4. Still in search of Romeo, Mercutio and Benvolio finally run into their friend on the street. We learn from Benvolio that the Montagues have received a threatening note from Tybalt directed at Romeo. Mercutio is worried about lovesick Romeo's ability to best the talented Tybalt in a duel. Soon enough, they run into Romeo and they note that he's no longer moping. Romeo and Mercutio banter for a while.
Oh, the banter.
Oh, the banter, until Juliet's nurse arrives. She pulls Romeo aside and he tells her to tell Juliet to meet him at Friar Lawrence's cell that afternoon, all while keeping arrangements secret from his friends. So we got a lot to dive into this scene, a lot to delve into. Some complex trickery, some wordplay, some joshing around.
Oh, all the joshing.
It's almost like Mercutio's in this scene.
Could it be?
It could be. I found that his scenes tend to be the most complex.
Well, he's just the best character as well.
Oh, absolutely. He truly. I firmly stand by that. That
Were you
Mercutio is
cast
the
in
best
a
character.
production of this? Would you?
I would absolutely go for Mercutio. I would love to be Mercutio. I think that'd be so much fun. I think the idea of a gender bent Mercutio could be really fun too.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
there's like I think you could play around with that a little bit. I think it'd be a lot of.
I don't know why the archetype of jester seems to be particularly not apt, but malleable as far as gender bending goes.
Yeah.
But you see that a lot. All right.
Yeah. Gosh, he's so much fun. All right. So, as normal, we're going to read through the scene and then back and pick it apart at the seams.
Just rend that
the scene, we've got Romeo, Benvolio, Mercutio, and the nurse, I believe. Who would you like? Oh, and her man, Peter. But he's quite a little character.
Quite a little guy.
Quite a little guy. Who would you like to play? Who would you like to read today?
Well, I know you love our main man, so I will...
I love him dearly.
For this first section, I will read Benvolio, and then we'll see how it happens, how the roles are placed, but sure, let's go for it.
All right. Where the devil should this Romeo be? Came he not home tonight?
Not to his father's, I spoke with his man.
Why, that same pale, hard-hearted wench, that Rosalind, torments him so that he will sure run mad.
Tybalt, the kinsman of old Capulet, hath sent a letter to his father's house.
A challenge on my life.
Romeo will answer it.
Any man that can write may answer a letter.
Nay, he will answer the letter's master. How he dares being dared.
Alas, poor Romeo, he was already dead, stabbed with the white wench's black eye, run through the ear with a love song, the very pin of his heart cleft with the blind bow boy's butt shaft. And is he a man to encounter Tybalt?
Why, what is Tybalt?
More than Prince of Casso, he's the courageous captain of compliments. He fights as you sing prick's song, keeps time, distance, and proportion. Oh, I'm still going.
Mercutio, just a little stutter step.
He rests his minim rests, 1, 2, and the third in your bosom. The very butcher of a silk button, a duelist, a gentleman of the very first house of first and second cause, the immortal passado, the punto reverso, the hey.
The what?
The pox of such antic, lisping, affecting phantasimes. These new tuners of accent, by Jesu, a very good blade, a very tall man, a very good whore. Why is not this a lamentable thing, grandsire, that we should be thus afflicted with these strange flies, these fashion mongers, these pardon me's, who can stand so much on the new form that they cannot sit at ease on the old bench? Oh, their bones, their bones!
Here comes Romeo, here comes Romeo.
Without his roe like a dried herring. Oh, flesh, flesh, how art thou fish? Now is he here for the numbers that Petrarch flowed in? Lord to his lady was a kitchen wench, Mary she had better love to berhyme her. Ditto a dowdy, Cleopatra a gypsy, Helen and Hero, Hildings and Harlow. This be a grey eye or so, but not to the purpose. Signor Romeo, bonjour, is a French salutation to your French slop. You gave us the counterfeit fairly last night.
Romeo become I. Good morrow to you both. What counterfeit did I give you?
The slip, sir, the slip. Can you not conceive?
Pardon, good Mercutio, my business was great, and in such a haste as mine a man may strain courtesy.
That's as much as to say such a case was your strains a man to bow than the hams. Ooh,
Meaning
to bow in the hams.
to curtsy.
Thou hast most kindly hit it.
A most courteous exposition.
Nay, I am the very pink of courtesy.
Pink for flower?
Right?
Why, then is my pump well flowered.
Sure wit, follow me this jest now till thou hast worn out thy pump. Soul of it or the jest may remain after the wearing solely singular.
Oh, single-souled jest, solely singular for the singleness.
Come between us, good Benvolio, my wit faints.
Switch and spurs, or I'll cry a match.
Nay, if our wits run the wild goose chase, I am done, for thou hast more of the wild goose in one of thy wits than I am sure I have in my whole. Was I with you there for the goose?
Thou wast never with me for anything when thou wast not there for the goose.
I will bite thee by the ear for that jest.
Nay, good goose, bite not.
Thy wit is very bitter sweeting. It is a most sharp sauce.
And is it not well served into a sweet goose?
Oh, here's a wit of Cherville that stretches from an inch narrow to an elbow.
I'll stretch it out for that word broad, which added to the goose proves thee far and wide a broad goose.
Why is this better now than groaning for love? Now art thou sociable, now art thou Romeo, now thou art, by art as well as by nature, for this drivelling love is like a great natural that runs lolling up and down to hide his bauble in a hole.
Benvolio pipes up, Stop there, stop there.
Thou desirest me to stop in my tail against the hair.
Thou wouldst else have made thy tail large.
Oh, thou art deceived. I would have made it short, for I was come to the depth of my tail, and meant indeed to occupy the argument no longer. And then the nurse and her man Peter comes in.
Romeo says, Here's goodly gear, a sail, a sail.
2, a shirt and a smock.
Nurse Peter?
I'll do Peter.
Sure. Peter?
Actually, no, I'll do the nurse, because the nurse is
Or that, yeah.
Sorry. Peter.
Anon.
My fan, Peter. Then Mercutio. Good Peter, to hide her face, for her fans the. God you good morrow, gentlemen. God you good e'en, fair gentlemen. Okay. I'm just going to talk to myself for a minute. God you good e'en, fair gentlewoman. Is it good e'en? 'Tis no less, I tell you, for the body hand of the dial is now upon the trick of noon. Out upon you! What a man are you!
Romeo pipes up, One gentlewoman that God hath made for himself to mar.
By my troth, it is well said, for himself to mar, quoth he. Gentlemen, can any of you tell me where I may find the young?
I can tell you, but young Romeo will be older when you have found him than he was when you sought him. I am the youngest of that name, for fault of a worse.
You say well. And then Mercutio pipes, Yea, is the worst well. Very well took, in faith, wisely. Why? And then the nurse, If you be he, sir, I desire some confidence with you.
Benvolio pipes up, She will indict him to some supper.
Abad, Soho!
Romeo, What hast thou found?
No hair, sir, unless a hair, sir, and a Lenten pot. That is something stale, and ere it be spent. And then he sings, An old hair whore is an old hair whore. It's a very good meat in Lent, but a hair that is whore is too much for a scholar. And a horse ere it be spent. Romeo, will you come to your father's? Will to dinner thither.
I will follow you.
Farewell, ancient lady, farewell, lady. Mercutio and Benvolio exit. And then the nurse, I pray you, sir, what saucy merchant was this that was so full of his ropery?
A gentleman, nurse, that loves to hear himself talk, and will speak more in a minute than he will stand to in a month.
And he speak anything against me, I'll take him down, and if he then he is, and 20 such jacks. And if I cannot, I'll find those that shall. Scurvy knave, I am none of his flirt gills, I am none of his skein mates. And thou must stand by too, and suffer every knave to use me as his pleasure.
I saw no man, Peter, I saw no man use you at his pleasure. If I had, my weapon should quickly have been out, I warrant you. I dare draw as soon as another man, if I see occasion in a good quarrel, and the law on my side.
Now, afore God, I am so vexed that every part about me quivers. Scurvy knave! Pray you, sir, a word, and as I told you, my young lady bid me inquire you out. What she bid me say I will keep to myself. But first let me tell you, if you should lead her in a fool's paradise, as they say, it were a very gross kind of behaviour, as they say. For the gentlewoman is young, and therefore, if you should deal double with her, truly it were an ill thing to be offered to any gentlewoman, and very weak dealing.
Nurse, commend me to thy lady and mistress. I protest unto thee.
Good heart, and in faith I will tell her as much. Lord, she will be a joyful woman.
What wilt thou tell her, nurse? Thou dost not mark thither.
I will tell her, sir, that you do protest, which, as I take it, gentlemanlike offer.
Bid her devise some means to come to Shrift this afternoon, and there she shall at Friar Lawrence's cell be shrived and married. Here is for thy pains.
No, sir. No, truly, sir, not a penny.
Go to. I say you shall.
This afternoon, sir. Well, she shall be there.
And stay, good nurse, behind the abbey wall. Within this hour my man shall be with thee, and bring thee cords made like a tackled stair, which to the high top gallant of my joy must be my convoy in the secret night. Farewell, be trusty, and I'll quit thy pains. Farewell, commend me to thy mistress.
Now God in heaven bless thee. Hark you, sir.
What sayest thou, my dear nurse?
Is your man secret? Did he ne'er hear say, two may keep counsel, keeping one away?
I warrant thee my man's as true as steel.
Well, sir, my mistress is the sweetest lady. Lord, when 'twas a little prating thing. Oh, there is a nobleman in town, one Paris, that would fain lay knife aboard, but she, good soul, had as lief see a toad, a very toad, as see him. I anger her sometimes and tell her that Paris is the proper man, but I'll warrant you, when I say so, she looks as pale as any clout in the versal world. Doth not Rosemary and Romeo both begin with a letter?
Aye, nurse. What of that? Both begin with an R.
Mocker, that's the dog's name. R is for the... No, I know it begins with some other letter, and she hath the prettiest sententious of it. That can't be how that's said. Of you and Rosemary, that would do you good to hear it.
Commend me to thy lady.
Aye, 1,000 times. Peter.
Anon.
Before and apace.
Exeunt.
Exeunt. Gosh, what a scene. It doesn't seem like there's a lot to it, but oh boy, is there a lot to it.
No, I'm not entirely sure if this is not the scene, but the wordplay between Romeo and Mercutio, like their brotherly camaraderie, is just like golden in any production.
Oh, absolutely.
And I've seen productions of this where the Romeo and the Mercutio are very good friends in real life, just the actors are, and it brings like a whole new magic to it.
Oh, I can imagine.
It's really
I can
something.
imagine.
Yeah.
I can imagine the kind of like air of not so much complexity, but just familiarity that would kind of bring to it.
Oh yeah, and we'll go into it, but Mercutio's whole bit about Tybalt and describing Tybalt with all of this musical innuendo is just like I love it. And
it's so I think this is probably the most complex scene we've come across yet.
Yeah.
Just in the sheer wordplay of it all. One thing I want to bring up before we dive into this that I think is so funny. This is the scene where Mercutio Benvolio is more than the Prince of Cats, and for that reason, my family's looking at getting a cat. I've told you this story, but for the cast, my family's looking at getting a cat, and I want to name the cat Tybalt because Tybalt's the Prince of Cats, and I think that's really funny.
Did I suggest that?
I really want to.
I want to take credit for that idea.
You didn't. It was all me, and I'm very proud of myself for it. But no, that was absolutely not your idea.
Well, all right, let's calm down. No, I only say because a teacher of mine has a cat named Tybalt. And I
really?
Yeah, and that's where I got it from.
It's such a perfect cat name.
Yeah, definitely. 100%.
I think it's such a perfect cat name.
It's up there with Puck, and the only reason it wins is again because Tybalt is the Prince of Cats.
Tybalt's the Prince of Cats. Puck is such a cute name for a cat, but it's only the one syllable. And then you've got Tybalt over here that's literally means cat in like in this period. And then you've got Tybalt, the Prince of Cats or the King of Cats or whatever you want to call it. And it's just so perfect. But then there's also Percy in the back of my mind. But this is a conversation for
yeah. What are we doing?
Check out.
All right.
All right. Let's hop on it. Let's Let's just dive into this, shall we?
We so shall. I will go for
Shallest.
it. Where the devil should this Romeo be? Came he not home tonight? That's our opening line from Mercutio. It means exactly what you think it means. Where is Romeo? Shouldn't he have come home tonight? Benvolio responds with, not to his father, I spoke with his man. And with his man is just, we use that nowadays with his servant, with his right-hand man. So he didn't go home to his father's. I know that because I spoke with his servant. And then Mercutio comes in with what?
Mercutio comes in with why that same pale-hearted wench that torments him mad. Again, pretty much means exactly what you think it means. Right. So that same pale-hearted wench, Rosalind, just torments him so that he will surely run mad. They're like, essentially, Romeo's gonna go crazy over this, as Mercutio says, wench.
God, that's such a
Benvolio.
good
It's so fun. We love it. Mercutio replies, Tybalt, the kinsman of old Capulet, hath sent a letter. Essentially, Tybalt, who is the Lord Capulet's kinsman, his nephew, specifically, he sent over a letter to Romeo that morning to his father's house. And then Mercutio, a challenge on my life, or a challenge I bet on my life. So Mercutio's essentially saying, I'm sure he's challenging him to a duel. I'll bet it on my life. To which Benvolio
pipes up and says Romeo will answer it. And Romeo he's a testy guy, if we haven't gathered that already. And he will surely answer the call. To which Mercutio says, any man that can write may answer a letter, but Benvolio says, nay, he will answer the letter's master, how he dares being dared. So Mercutio goes, well, yeah, of course he'll answer the letter. What are you, dumb? And then Benvolio goes, no, of course he'll answer the letter. He'll answer the letter's master. He'll go straight to Tybalt and accept his duel.
Because he's courageous when he's being challenged. And a little note.
Strapping young man.
A little note here on Mercutio's, any man that can write may answer a letter. Back in the times here, duels were governed by a very specific rule of etiquette. First, a formal challenge was issued in the letter, as we are seeing here, and then if the other party accepted the challenge, said to answered it. And this is what Benvolio meant when he said Romeo will answer it. And Mercutio knew Benvolio meant that, but he was joking that anybody who can write can physically answer a letter. So Mercutio's just given Benvolio a hard time, as he does. And yeah, that's that for that. Benvolio, nay. That's all the things on the anything and everything. Anyway. Then you have nay, I meant that he will answer the letter's master directly. How he dares being dared, aka he's courageous when he's challenged. And then what does Mercutio say?
Alas, poor Romeo, he is already dead, stabbed with a white wench's black eye, shot through the ear with a love song, the very pin of his heart cleft with the blind bow boy's butt shaft. God,
Stupid phrase.
The alliteration is intense. And is he a man to encounter Tybalt? Okay, let's take that back.
There's a lot here.
Alas, poor Romeo.
A lot to pick apart.
He's already dead, stabbed with a white wench's black eye. We got a little bit of wordplay with that. We have something I will talk to you about just now. Shakespeare describes Rosalind as a white wench because she's white and a wench, which creates an alliteration on the W. Always fun. That's got to be my favorite sort of grammar tool, is alliteration.
It's so fun.
God, I just spend nights looking at alliteration. By giving that white wench a black eye, he creates an antithesis, a pair of opposites. So, white wench, black eye. Yeah, just wordplay.
I just want to say, for somebody who's like wild as Mercutio, he is so, I don't want to say intelligent, but just so with his words. Like, he knows how to, like...
He's very structured.
He's structured. He knows exactly what to say to just, like, poke the bear to like say one thing, but everybody knows he means in something entirely different. He's so like gosh, he's such an interesting character to me. Anyway, you can go on.
Sure. And then that whole passage which I just read, we'll coin it Bo Boy's butt shaft, has a bit of imagery in it. So that, alas, poor Romeo. Mercutio humorously describes Romeo so incapacitated by the effects of love, as we've seen many a time, that he's in no condition to take on an angry Tybalt, that he's just going to fail instantly. He's been pierced in the heart by Cupid's bow, shot in the ear by love's songs, and stabbed by penetrating looks from his mistress's dark, beautiful eyes. Again, he's continuing to talk about Rosalind, whom he thinks Romeo is still infatuated with.
Yeah. And then as we've seen, we got more alliteration. The blind boy's butt shaft. Just such an interesting phrase.
I don't know why I hadn't come across that before, but I kind of want to write that down. It's just so, I love that. All right, go on, Ron.
It's so funny. Yeah, so then Benvolio replies, why, what is Tybalt? Again, self-explanatory, not really all that much to get into there. What is Tybalt?
What is a knife?
What is a knife? Mercutio replies, more than Prince of Cats, he's the courageous captain of compliments. He fights as you sing prick song or counterpoint, keeps time, distance, and proportion. He rests, pauses, his minimum rests, shortest note. 1, 2, and the third in your bosom, the very butcher of a silk button, a duelist, a gentleman of the very of the very first house of first and second cause, the Sada, the punta reverso, the hay. There's a lot here. We'll dive into it right now. To start, more than the Prince of Cats. As we kind of touched on previous, Tybalt was the word for cat. In this little speech here, Mercutio makes fun of Tybalt for being a gentleman duelist who spends a lot of time practicing the art of fencing, when in actuality he is unlikely to ever swing a sword with the intention of harming anyone. In the play, Tybalt is the butt of Mercutio's satirical ridicule, but he was just a stand-in for the typical pretentious, fashion-conscious young nobleman who Shakespeare saw every day in London. Yeah, so just a lot of Mercutio hating Tybalt. A lot of Tybalt hate here.
So much, all of it.
So much. So then he fights as using prick song. The very butcher of a silk button. Mercutio is mocking Tybalt here with that. This is a reference to the most famous fencer of Shakespeare's day, who boasted that he could stab his opponent. You ever heard of an opponent?
I haven't.
Who could stab his opponent in whichever shirt button he chose. So there's some references to Shakespeare's time in this, which is interesting to me, as I feel we haven't really seen too many of those so far. I think there was a reference to another playwright previous, but nothing really super stand out. Later on here we have a duelist, a gentleman of the very first house, second cause. Here Mercutio is describing Tybalt as a gentleman duelist of the very first house, meaning that he takes lessons at the house of the most famous fencing instructor, and that he's a gentleman duelist of the first and second cause, the causes for which one could legally issue a challenge published as a numbered list. So just so much wordplay here. I love it. A lot of fencing maneuvers, as we see with the Passata, the Punta Reverso, and the Hay. They were all pretentiously known by their foreign names.
Pretentiously, mind you.
What?
Pretentiously, mind you.
Oh, so pretentious. So the passata, or the proper passata, was a step forward or aside. The punta reverso was an Italian term, not still foreign. Okay, never mind. It was an Italian term meaning a backhanded stroke, and the hay is also an Italian word used when a thrust reaches the antagonist. So you just got a lot of fencing in this one little paragraph here.
Benvolio replies with, what? Which, as we know, means what? Back to you, Rowan.
Mercutio, the pox antic, lisping affecting phantasms. These new tuners. There you go. These new tuners of accent. So here we've got poxa or a plague on, which is a phrase that Mercutio is going to revisit in the future. Such antic or bizarre lisping affecting what did you say?
Phantasms.
Phantasms?
Nope.
Phantasms.
Phantasm.
Or pretentious phantasms. Go! Pretentious creatures. These new tuners of accent, which means Shakespeare's just continuing to make fun of that one dude. You all know that one guy, that one young nobleman.
Hate
him. You hate him. So he's making fun of this guy, right? Through Mercutio's mocking of Tybalt, this time satirizing, something. It's a word. I'm not going to say it right. Their affected manner of speaking by new tuners of accents. Shakespeare means those who are putting on fake accents. What's next? So then he goes, by Jesus, a very good blade, a very tall man, a very here.
I'll take this one.
Please do. I've been talking for way too long.
By Jesus, a very good blade, a very tall man, and a very good whore, which is coincidentally what I say on my wedding night. Rather than speaking simply and directly, the young nobleman used inflated, contrived language, as Mercutio is prone to do. A good fellow became a very good blade, and a brave man became a very tall man. So, he's bored by English. And so is creating his own sort of...
Who isn't bored by English?
And so is creating his own sort of descriptive measures to... Although a very good whore, very self-explanatory. Why is not this a lamentable thing, grandsire, that we should be thus afflicted with these strange flies, these fashion mongers, these pardonnois, who stand so much on the new form that they cannot sit at ease on the old bench? Oh, their bones, their bones. All right, let's take that apart. Why is this not a lamentable thing, I should say? This is quite the sad thing, grandsire, good sir, that we should be thus afflicted with these strange flatterers, these fashion mongers, these pardonnois, who insist so much on the new form of speaking that they cannot sit at ease on the old bench. So, I believe... I don't believe I've written this down, but I believe this is a jab at the French, which 9 times out of 10, you would be right in assuming that.
Yeah, so that pardon is just a jab at people.
He's essentially
saying, excuse me.
Yeah, he's essentially saying that language has become so pretentious that these good sirs are such sort of high and mighty, pompous on their high horse, that they're using all of this flattery, fashion monger-esque language and refuse to sit on the old bench. Oh, their bones, because they quake when sitting down on this old bench. But anyways, off we go. Benvolio comes in.
Yes. One more thing. There's a little pun here. There's a pun on their bones, referring to the fact that they use the French expression très bon instead of just saying very good. So there's a little bit of another jab of the French pun there. And then this is when Romeo enters, and Benvolio says, here comes Romeo, here comes Romeo. I should sure hope I don't have to pick that apart. I feel that's pretty self-explanatory.
Our demographic for the fan group is 0 to 2.
Romeo. It's like, oh, hey, it's Romeo. He's coming. We don't have to talk about this anymore.
Baby's number one pastime after just coming out of the womb, new poll says, listening to the Anything and Everything podcast.
As they should. Getting them started young. All right.
Indoctrination.
Mercutio replies quite lengthily, as he does. Without his roe, like a dried herring, oh, fishified. Mercutio jokes that Romeo has turned from flesh to fish, or a dried herring to be exact. A herring was sold in the markets of Shakespeare's London. Typically, it was dried after the roe or the eggs were removed. But the term roe also referred to the male sperm, and that's how Mercutio is using it when he describes Romeo as rowless after presumably having spent the night with Rosalind. So we're back to Romeo's roots, his good old innuendos here, his assumptions of Romeo's pastimes, you could say.
Little does he know that Romeo ain't getting any.
Romeo's doing a fucky wucky. He's making some bad decisions here. Anyway.
All he's getting is a kiss. Not even from Rosalind.
They're just doing as pilgrims do.
Keep
Nothing
in mind,
special.
This entire play, another moral you could take from this play is we all need to compromise eventually. Just don't be an idiot about it.
There you go.
Our dreams are unattainable. Just relent.
I think that's exactly what Shakespeare
has 100%.
Our dreams are unattainable, and this it's a lesson, kids. Anyway, Mercutio continues. Now is here for the love poems that Petrarch loved in, who was a poem. Petrarch was a poem, an author. Laura to his or Romeo's lady was a kitchen wench. Mary, she had a better to rhyme her. Dido, a dowdy or frump. Cleopatra, a gypsy. Helen and Hero, hildings or hags. And Harlows, whores. Mercutio is just really going at it right now. He's really going at it. This be a grey eye or so, aka not bad looking, but not to the purpose. Signor Romeo, bonjour, once again, French. Jabbing at the French. There's a French salutation, greeting to your French slop. You gave us the counterfeit fairly or positively last night. Just, gosh, so much. And there's a little bit to... But we'll get... Okay, there's a little bit to go into here, but let's keep going.
Let's do it. Good morrow to you both. What counterfeit did I give you? So Romeo says, good morning to you both. What counterfeit did I give you? What business have I with the both of you? And Mercutio says, the slip, sir, the slip. Can you not conceive? So Romeo goes, what did I do? Why are you guys looking at me like that? Mercutio goes, you left us. You abandoned us in the middle of the night. Do you not understand? And following from what Rowan was saying earlier, there's a little bit of wordplay here with counterfeit, as in the previous speech. He's coming right back to it, full circle. So Mercutio sets Romeo up for a pun on the word counterfeit. Romeo thinks that Mercutio is accusing him of having given them a counterfeit coin the evening before, as he's prone to do. He's a teenager, a little rambunctious little teen. But to give someone the counterfeit rather, can also mean to give them the slip or to duck out on them. So that's what Mercutio is actually accusing Romeo of doing when he hopped over that wall into Juliet's garden last night. And
Mercutio is just so awfully offended that he set Romeo up for this. It fell short. There's a lot of that, I feel, in this. There's a lot of kind of Mercutio and Romeo getting back in their back and forth antics in this scene, and Mercutio kind of setting Romeo up for a joke, and Romeo either disappointing him or going along with it perfectly, or even, coming back with his own joke. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, and we're starting to get into the more complex aspects of this scene, so try not to get too terrified.
Stay with us here, folks.
Yeah, so Romeo replies, pardon, good Mercutio, my business was great, and in such a case as mine, a man may strain courtesy. AKA, my business was important, and in such a case as mine, a man may forget his manners. So it's essentially, well, sorry, man, I had a thing to handle. And Mercutio replies, that's as much as to say such a case as yours constrains a man to bow in the hams. Romeo, meaning to curtsy or to bend in respect. Here, when Romeo says that his case may strain courtesy, so to speak, it sounds as if he's saying that his case may constrain courtesy, requiring a curtsy, a bending of the legs, or a bow in the hams, as Mercutio puts it. Romeo probably did not get Mercutio's innuendo. Case is slang for the female genitalia, and a bowing of the hams, the thigh and buttocks, is the motion a man makes when having sexual intercourse. So Mercutio coming right out of there.
True.
right out of the gates with quite the innuendo here that Romeo absolutely misses, does not pick up on in the slightest. And this is just going to continue. It's just going to continue. Take it away.
Mercutio?
Yep.
That's as much to say such a case as yours constrains a man to bow in the hams. Well, that's, again, as you've just said, that wordplay, that little playful jab, meaning to curtsy or to bend in respect. Mercutio, thou hast most kindly hit it. So, thou hast most kindly hit it. Mercutio's statement that Romeo has hit it, two interpretations. One, that he's made the connection between curtsy and courtesy. And two, that he's slept with Rosalind. So,
hit that.
Romeo is just getting blasted, as all good friends do, by their other good friends for doing the dirty.
Doing the dirty.
Doing the
We're
dirty
the
with the
Rosalind
neighbor
last
woman.
night.
Yes.
The neighbor woman. Romeo did not do that, so he's completely missing all of Mercutio's attempts at innuendo here, as he has nothing, he has no reason to. He didn't do anything Mercutio is accusing him of. So after that, Romeo is starting to pick up on the wordplay a little bit. Most courteous exposition, or nice way to say it. Mercutio, nay, I am the very pink of courtesy, which is more of a common quote from this play, and I love it a lot. Nay, or indeed, I am the very flower of courtesy. Romeo, pink for flower. Mercutio, right. Pink was another word for flower, as we're seeing here. Mercutio's expression, the very pink of courtesy, means the very height of courtesy.
Just the very height. Romeo pipes in and goes, "Why then is my pump well flowered?" And that's a thing, we'll get to that. He goes, "Well said, follow me in this just now till thou hast worn out thy pump, that when the single soul of it is worn, the jest may remain after the wearing." So, why then is my pump well flowered? More innuendo. Romeo's picking up on it now.
I'd just like to note that in my notes here, when I was going through and analyzing this, I wrote, OMG, Romeo made an innuendo, Mercutio's brand. So Romeo was starting to pick up a little bit on some Mercutio's wordplay and innuendo, and he's so ready to use it, and I think it's really funny.
When people spend enough time around each other, they start making the dirtiest jokes known to man. Why then is my pump well... Okay. All right. Don't know who you're hanging out with. We should get that checked.
You!
Okay, let's keep that for listening in, folks, which you should listen to. Innuendo.
Listen to listening in. Listen in to listening in, if you will.
Anyway. I will. Why then is my pump well flowered? Romeo's shoes,
Why is it?
Pumps, rather, are decorated with small perforations called pinking. And since pink means flower, one could say that these pumps are well flowered. Mercutio gets the sexual innuendo. Romeo's pump is well flowered because he has used it to deflower many a young maiden. Which...
God, this is making me so happy to see Romeo actually using wordplay, and they're like word playing at each other. Like, gosh, I love it so much.
Okay, well, I will say throughout this entire play, I have made the stand that I hate Romeo. I still do. That being said, I hate him because he's a simp. When he's around his friends...
When he's around Mercutio, he's great.
Yeah, he's great because Mercutioizes him.
Yeah. He tends to act very differently around with Juliet. The version of Romeo we see with Mercutio is witty,
handsome, sexy.
Witty. That might be pushing it a little bit. It's just a more witty kind of comedic side of him that we don't see when he's not with Mercutio. So it's very interesting to look at. All right, here we've got, God, just so much to dive into.
So
Mercutio, sure would follow with me this just now to the house worn out thy pump, so that when the single soul of it is worn, the jest may remain after the wearing solely singular. Romeo replies, "Oh, single-souled jest, solely singular for the singleness."
Best line.
Can you sense the wordplay here, folks?
One of the best lines in this entire play. "Oh, single-souled jest, solely singular for the singleness."
Mercutio, come between us, good Benvolio, my wits faint. So I will go ahead and start us off with this and throw it over to you. So, at this point, Romeo and Mercutio's wordplay gets so very complex, as I'm sure that you tell just reading the original language. So let's walk through it, shall we? We shall. Mercutio begins by telling Romeo to follow along. Follow me this jest now. Then he continues as if Romeo were to physically follow him until you lightweight dancing shoes, or as we mentioned, his pumps. Follow me this just now till thou hast worn out thy pump when the single soul of it is worn. Now Romeo is left holding the jest, which Mercutio describes as being solely singular. The descriptive phrase solely singular has a double meaning, as I'm sure we can all guess. In one sense, the jest has been left alone, singular by the soul which is worn away. It's been left solely singular. Why don't you pick it up? Unless you would like me to keep going.
You absolutely may. And then I'll take the next chunk.
Take the next
over here.
Perfect. So then Romeo then picks up on the second meaning and makes a stinging jest of his own. Oh, single-souled jest, solely singular for the singleness. He agrees that Mercutio's single-souled jest is totally unusual, but it's unusual for its simpleness. Ouch. Just really going for the jugular. Although Romeo may call Mercutio's jest simple, trying to decipher these witticisms is making our head spin. Is your head spinning?
It may, very much so. If you tune in on YouTube, you can see my head spinning.
You can see his head spinning. It's quite gruesome.
Blood everywhere.
Mercutio has to feel the same way, because he now calls step in and stop this war of wits between him and Romeo. Nobody in the audience is going to follow along these lines as if they're, watching the play for the first time. They can never follow this complicated wordplay. So perhaps all this jesting was also solely singular in the sense that only one person could follow it, and that person was Shakespeare himself. So we've got just so much here. Didn't it make sense? I don't know. You tell me.
Leave a comment.
Leave a comment. Like and subscribe.
So anyway, after all that huge chunk of garbly gook that is this play, we come to Romeo, who says, switch and spurs, or I'll cry a match. Whip and spurs, switch and spurs, or I'll cry game over. So Romeo, as with the spurs and the whip, you can best assume that he's talking about racing horses. So Romeo compares their competition of wits to a horse race, urging Mercutio to keep spurring on his wit, otherwise Romeo will declare himself the winner. And Mercutio can't have that. That would be awful. That would be
horrible. We can't let that happen.
Mercutio launches into a mini little paragraph here and says, "Nay, if our wits run the wild goose chase, I have done. For thou hast more of the wild goose in one of thy wits than I am sure I have in my whole 5. Was I with you there for the goose? Okay.
Gosh, I love all this goose talk.
I know, because who are we, Ron?
Because we're the geeses. We're geeses. We're silly geeses.
We're silly geeses.
Silly geeses.
We are
this
the
is
geeses.
This is our this is.
Gosh, tack it to your wall. Act 2, scene 4. That's our scene. Geeses.
It's our scene. It's the scene of the geeses.
Some people have a song. We have a scene.
So true.
Nay, if our wits run the wild goose chase, I have done. I will lose. For thou hast more of the wild goose in one of thy wits than I am sure I have in my whole 5. I was even there for the goose, the jest. So goose meaning jest in this case. So 5 wits. Sometimes the word wits refers to 5 external senses: hearing, sight, touch, smell, feel. But here it's referring to 5 internal wits, such as good reasoning and judgment. So a little bit of that there. And he's saying, one of your wits can trump my whole 5 because, oh my God, you've really stepped up to the plate today, Romeo. Good on you.
And he has.
And then he's
coming out to play.
He changes the topic again and goes, was I even with you there for the goose? So, was I even with you for the jest? To which Romeo replies,
Thou wast never with me for anything when thou wast there for the goose. So the only thing in which you surpass me is stupidity. Romeo is really just, God, I'm so proud of him.
I know.
I'm so proud of
Our
him
little
right
boy
now.
has grown up.
Gosh, he's just, he came out to play.
Still gonna die, though.
Gosh.
Still gonna die.
He's still gonna die.
I will bite
So
thee
this
by
is
the ear
all
for that
just-
jest.
Yeah, this is all just the start to a very complex wit match. So I'll bite thee in the ear for that jest, which we will explain shortly. Nay, good goose, bite not. So now they're referring to each other as geese. Thy wit is a very
just
bitter
the best.
sweeting. It is a most sharp sauce, so thy wit is a very bittersweet thing. Romeo, and is it not then well served into its sweet goose? Mercutio, oh, here's a wit of cheverel, soft leather, that stretches from an inch narrow to an elbow, a yard wide. Romeo, I stretch it out for that word broad, which added to the goose proves thee far and wide a broad or body goose. So would you like to just dive into that?
Well, so they keep on referring to each other as geese, and geese is being tossed back and forth between its two meanings. One meaning jest, which Mercutio has already coined it, and the second by its other meaning of an actual goose. So Romeo just digs into him with the comment, "Thou wast never with me for anything when thou wast not there for the goose." Mercutio then goes, "I will bite thee by the ear for that jest." He's getting a little bit aggressive now. His wit is fainting from it. It's all still playful, of course. I'll nip you for that, you little slugger. To which Romeo says, "Nay, good goose, bite not." As we all know, all of us, every single one, geese are somewhat aggressive and are seen to bite quite a bit, take a little bit of nibble out of the human flesh. Nay, good goose, bite not. Thy wit is a very bitter sweetening, which is the most sharp sauce. Bitter sweet thing. So thy wit is a very... I don't like where this is going, your whole being better than me at this. On the one hand, I'm proud of you. On the other hand, it's a little bit unsettling. It is a most sharp sauce, very penetrating, and it hurts. It's painful.
It's like you're starting to outshine me in this wordplay thing, and that's my thing. Dude.
That's
Your
crazy.
thing is to be in love and angsty. My thing is to be smart.
And is it not well served into a sweet goose, which he's taking it literally, which is another form of wordplay, and taking the sharp sauce element and going, that sauce is best served with goose.
Best served goose. Gosh. Yeah. So here we have just gosh, so much wordplay. We had that
All of
line,
it.
nay of our God, that got really loud. We have that line, nay of our wits run the wild goose chase, begins another long series of wordplay based on the word goose, as Ty just mentioned, which is even more obscure than our solely singular just wordplay earlier in the scene. First, we're going some pertinent characteristics of geese. First of all, it's very difficult.
Yes, it is.
Never
You're
mind.
damn right it is.
I misread my notes.
It's very difficult.
No matter how difficult a path the lead goose takes, as if you were seeing a string of geese walking in the line, every subsequent goose always follows exactly in its footsteps, which gave rise to a popular horse race in Shakespeare's day called a wild goose chase, in which the first rider sets a difficult course while the second rider tries to keep up while following the exact same line. Seems like so much fun.
All of it.
Another characteristic of a geese is that they are notoriously unintelligent. Most references to a goose simply imply stupidity. And finally, geese are by nature rather mean. As Ty had mentioned, they're aggressive. If you turn their back on one, you're likely to receive a bite in your butt.
You see why Mercutio was given all sorts of little zingers right there.
I know. Romeo's just coming at him. I'm so proud of him. Anyway. So let's... Our first goose jest. Romeo has just urged Mercutio to keep their battle of wits up by using a metaphor of a horse race. Switch and spurs, I'll cry a match. Mercutio presumes that Romeo is referring to a wild goose chase, as mentioned previous, and since they are having a contest of wits, it follows that their jests will be running the race. If that's the case, Mercutio says, then he's going to lose. According to Mercutio's reasoning, the racer that is more like a goose is going to win a wild goose chase, and Romeo has 5 times as much goose or stupidity in his wits as Mercutio and his. As he says, for thou hast more of the wild goose in one of thy wits than I am sure I have in my whole...
Striking
Mercutio then... Yeah, tracking back to the whole wits discussion. Mercutio then asks if he has stayed even with Romeo in their race of wits, then... Nope. Even with Romeo in the race of wits with his clever goose jest. And Romeo scores a point when he says that Mercutio is never even with when it comes to geese or stupidities. Once again, calling Mercutio stupid. We love to see it.
We love to. We adore
we
that.
Love to. We absolutely love it. And at this point, Romeo has essentially called Mercutio a stupid goose, as we've mentioned.
Many a time.
So Mercutio pretends to be a goose and threatens to bite Romeo. But since goose is another name for a prostitute, Mercutio decides to take on that role and playfully gives Romeo a little nip on the ear. I will bite thee on the ear for that jest. Playing along... God, I love this so much. Playing along with Mercutio in the role of a prostitute, Romeo laughingly cites the proverb, a good goose bites not. Mercutio, pretending to have taken a bite out of Romeo, describes his wit as a sharp sauce.
At which point they playfully have sex.
I wouldn't put it past them.
The joke goes a little bit too far.
They seem like the kind of guys who would kiss the homies goodnight, you know?
Yeah.
This is very much that kind of energy. It's like Brutus and Cassius kissing the homies goodnight.
Which, if you haven't, read that play.
Read it, it's very good.
But yes, Mercutio pipes up after all of this. Well, we're not out of the woods quite yet, but he goes, oh, here's a wit of chevril that stretches from an inch to an inch narrow to an L broad. Chevril is soft leather. So here's a wit of very soft leather, very malleable, that stretches from an inch narrow to an L broad. He's referring to how stupid and dumb and sort of a playboy Romeo was just one night ago, and now he's really stepping up to the plate, and his wit is a yard wide, as opposed to an inch narrow as it was before.
It's stretching that wit pretty thin.
Pretty thin. Romeo pipes up, he goes, I stretch it out. End of scene. No, he says, I stretch it out. For that word broad, which added to the goose, proves the far and wide a broad goose. Broad meaning body. He's using it both ways. He's taking that word and twisting it right on over.
He's making one final innuendo.
Yes, you are a bawdy goose, also, a prostitute. So he's really, in that one comment, calling him dumb, a whore, a slut, a prostitute, and aggressive. Oh, and overtly bawdy.
God, Romeo just really putting the nail in the coffin.
And then
and that's that. That's that little interaction amounted to all of that wordplay and innuendo. Can we hear it? A round of applause for Romeo and Mercutio. I feel like it's necessary.
They really are a great duo.
They really are, and I wish we got more of them.
Get the Benvolio and Mercutio simps out of here.
I am one of them. No, but I wish we had more with Mercutio in such a setting as this, because this is like really the only time we see Romeo stepping up to the plate and using that brain of his for anything.
It's very true, and if you analyze the dialogue, it seems that Mercutio himself is quite surprised, so...
Mercutio is very surprised.
This is not a regular thing that we're missing. This is like a whole change in character since he has found his lady love.
Yeah, he's finally out of his slump about Rosalind, and it's done something to him. And up to this point in the play, Romeo has not been Mercutio's wits and wordplay as he is now, he's always just kind of missed his innuendos, and it's caused Mercutio a great deal of pain. So Mercutio is quite pleased and quite nerve-wracked, honestly, that Romeo's managing to keep up with him in such a manner, because he's do it, and he's like, "Yo, I don't like this. Shut up.
Yo, can you not? Maybe I'm the king."
I am the king of wordplay. Back up.
Back up right now.
So we had Romeo's last line. I stretched it out for the word broad, which added to the goose proves the far and wide a body goose. To which Mercutio replies, I guess I'm reading it. Why is not this better now than for love? Now art thou sociable, now art thou Romeo, now art thou what thou art by art as well as by nature. For this driveling love is like a great natural that... No, that's right. Who is yelling outside? Is like a great natural that runs, that runs lolling up and down to hide his bauble in a hole. So, Romeo, now art thou what thou art by ability as well as by nature. Notice how here Shakespeare uses the word art 5 times in quick succession. Now art thou sociable, now art thou Romeo, now art thou what thou art by art. 4 times to mean are, and then once meaning ability. So now are you sociable, now you are Romeo, now are you what you are by ability, essentially. For this driveling or blathering love is like a great fool that runs drooling up and down to hide his trinket in a hole. Mercutio compares someone in love to a mentally disabled person playing with a toy. But in Shakespeare's time, a bauble was also the name for the staff carried by the court jester, who often used it for making obscene gestures. I'm sure you can imagine what they are. So in this metaphor, we're comparing love to a fool running up and down to hide his bauble in a hole. And to which Benvolio pipes up, Stop, please, Mercutio.
For the love of God.
This is getting a bit extreme, please. Quiet, shut up.
Mercutio then says, thou desirest me to stop in my tail against the hair. Benvolio says, thou wouldst else have made thy tail large, which in itself is a little bit of wordplay. Mercutio says, oh, thou art deceived. I would have made it short, for I was come to the whole depth of my tale, and meant indeed to occupy the argument no longer. And then we have everybody enter, but before that, let's go back here. Thou desirest me to stop in my tail against the hair. He's basically, are you sure? Because I can certainly continue on my little tangent.
I mean, you want me to stop?
That's a little bit ridiculous. I have so many more stories to tell. And
I've just got so much going on up there.
A little bit too much. Thou wouldst else have made thy tail large. So otherwise, it would have been a little bit too large. And tail, in Shakespeare's day, this is 2 different types of tale. One tale against the other. Tale is in a story which you tell. A tale is in what animals possess. By having a large tail, it's insinuated that you're very cowardly because there's more to tuck between your legs when you run away. So Benvolio is getting in his own little digs there, and
he's getting in. Benvolio is stepping up to the innuendo plate, and
even when Benvolio steps up, that's when you know you got to back down.
That's when Benvolio's getting in on. That's when you know maybe we should stop.
Maybe. Mercutio says, thou art deceived. I would have made it short, for I was come to the whole depth of my tale, and meant indeed to occupy the argument no longer. So nothing much here. It's just, oh, you're very wrong. I was at the end of my tale, and meant indeed to not speak of it much longer. Enter Nurse and Peter. All these
One
guys.
more thing. He also builds on Benvolio's previous innuendo, as the tail can also be a term for the male genitalia, as you mentioned. And to stop evokes the image of a stopper being placed in the hole of a cask of ale, and the hair refers to the female genitalia. So again, innuendo, to which Mercutio kind of plays off of, which he kind of plays off of in his response. In a bodier sense, he's once again putting a tail as in the male genitalia and argument as the female. So I was come to the whole depth or end of my tale, and meant to indeed occupy the argument no longer.
Juxtaposition, wordplay, you cannot beat it, folks.
You really can't. And
The
then
tail and
Nurse
the hair.
and Peter.
What a delightful pair those
What a
are.
delight for a little children's story.
Oh, goodness. I remember reading that, and that's why I'm where I am today.
So then we have the Nurse and Peter. And Romeo says,
"Here's goodly gear, a sail, a sail." To which Mercutio says, two, a shirt and a smock. Yes, smock meaning blouse. The nurse calls out, "Peter, anon, my friend Peter." And then it goes off into a little bit of, we start to get more complex as more characters enter the scene and begin talking, but a sail, a sail. A sail was the cry made when a lookout who sights a ship coming over the horizon, which is that nurse and servant resemble from a distance, which is a play on their weight. There's no
there's a
better
lot
way
of
to
that
put that.
in Shakespeare. There's a lot of that in Shakespeare. I'm learning in my endeavors.
Comedy of errors, Jesus Christ. But yes,
God.
it was so funny as well.
It was
Anyways,
hilarious, but it was so bad.
so that's what we have here. And then we have the nurse, who is just a servant like Peter, is acting as though she's upper class. Peter's not impressed and passes her anyways. So Peter and the nurse. The nurse, for a little pretext, the Peter is almost the servant to the servant, but is really, in effect, the closest thing that the nurse comes to as far as companionship in this play. It would be suitable to say that the Peter is regarded in most cases as her boyfriend, pretty much. Serves that purpose. Mercutio launches in.
My fan. Nope. Good Peter. So, okay, the nurse says, "My fan, Peter." To which Mercutio pipes in, "Good Peter to hide her fans, the fairer face." Here we just, a lot of Mercutio digging at the nurse because he's a pompous little asshole. And he likes, we love him dearly. The nurse, not so much. So good Peter to hide her face, for her fans the fairer or prettier face. So we don't want to look at her face anymore. Give her face so she can cover her face. The nurse replies, "God you good morrow, gentlemen. Good morning. Mercutio, God you good e'en or good evening, fair gentlewoman." The nurse is a good e'en or good afternoon, evening. Mercutio, "'Tis no less, I tell you, for the body," again, we're going back to that body wordplay, "hand of the dial is now upon the noon." So, "'tis no less, I tell you, for the indecent hand of the dial is now upon the prick of noon." The round dial represents the female, once again, genitalia, while hand is the male genitalia. Him and the freaking innuendos, standing at the erect 12 o'clock position. So he's just really first interaction with this nurse, and he's talking about what he's talking about. To which
he's talking about what he's talking about.
To which the nurse replies,
Well. You know how it is. "Out upon you.
There you go.
What sort of a man are you?" So she takes a little bit of offense at this, and "I just met you. What sort of a man are you? What are you, the scum of the streets?" Romeo replies, "One gentlewoman that God hath made for himself to ruin or mar." So the phrase alludes to the biblical idea of man being made in God's own image, and the proverbial expression "make or mar," to make something better or to destroy it. Mercutio means that he is a man that God made to harm others, but the nurse misinterprets him, thinking Mercutio means that he is a man God made so that God could harm him. So,
again, a dig at Mercutio.
Just all the dig. So this man has been created as God's plaything because God is bored, and he's selected this man to specifically mar him and ruin everything about him. Just look at his personality. That's essentially
because
what
God
Romeo
is
saying.
bored.
God gets
so
very
funny.
bored. The nurse launches in and says, "By my troth, it is well said, for himself to mar," quoth a, or he rather. "Gentlemen, can any of you tell me where I may find the young Romeo?" Complete change of topic. Just, I'm going to ignore that.
She's not dignifying any of this with a response.
That trash. Romeo says, "I can tell you."
I could tell you.
I know a guy. I could tell you, but young Romeo will be older when you have found him, as he was when you sought him. I am the youngest of that name, for fault of a worse, for lack of a worse, and young and youngest. Romeo teases the nurse for referring to him as young Romeo. He acknowledges that being young Romeo for lack of the worse adjective, thus inverting the normal phrase for fault, lack of a better. More language. The nurse pipes in with
So much
what?
language. You say well, so just good words.
Nice. Nice word.
Nice words. Mercutio plays yea is the very well took in faith wisely. So Mercutio can't help but dig at the nurse yet again, and making fun of the nurse's choice of words. She should have said "you speak well" instead of saying "you say well." What Romeo literally said was the word worse. Mercutio asks if the word worse means well. Then by asking is the worse well, he acts as if the nurse has said something well taken, even wise. So he's just really rubbing in the fact that this nurse does not have the kind of wit in wordplay that the rest of the party there present does.
Just taking
And
advantage of it.
he is taking advantage of it. He's complex wordplay that he nurse isn't going to understand, so that he can further make fun of her for not understanding it.
Nurse
replies,
totally ignores that, goes, "If you be he, sir, I desire some confidence with you." Benvolio goes, "She will indict him for some supper," which in itself is a little bit of language. We have confidence and indict. The nurse, who, as we've stated, is not the most educated person in the world, commits a malapropism, is what you would call that. She uses the wrong word, but when that sounds like the word she intended. What the nurse meant to say was, "I desire some conference with you," meaning she wants to speak to Romeo. Benvolio makes fun of her by intentionally committing another malapropism. He says that the nurse is going to indict Romeo for supper instead of invite him. So,
and I love, sorry to cut you off, I love this line because it shows that just as much of a ass them. Mercutio and Romeo are just always one-upping him, showing him up. But Benvolio's like, I can be mean too.
God,
I know words too.
The nurse just walked into a hailstorm of bullshittery and didn't make it out alive.
God damn. Mercutio then follows up with abad, soho. So abad is a pimp or a madam, procures clients for her prostitutes. Since the nurse is Juliet's overseer and has come to see Romeo Mercutio. Abad is a pimp or a madman clients for her prostitutes. Since the nurse is Juliet's overseer and has come to see Romeo, Mercutio is jokingly pretending she's procuring Romeo for Juliet. As it turns out, he's not that far off the mark. But bod is also another name for a hare, a rabbit, and soho is the call which a hunter makes to alert the other hunters when he's flushed at a hare.
There's an incredible amount of callback there I'd also like to mention, which you can glance by yourself, but abad, soho. "What hast thou found?" goes Romeo. "No hare, sir, unless a hare, sir, in Lenten pie. That is something stale and hoar ere it be spent." So we've got a lot here. Lent. So Lent is a 40-day period leading up to Easter when Catholics give up luxuries such as meat. Mercutio is imagining a rabbit pie which someone has prepared ahead of time to be eaten secretly during Lent. But the meat in the pie is not likely to last 40 days and will become moldy or hoar, as is stated, not WH, just HOAR, before it is eaten. The word hoar also means gray with age, generally referring to someone's hair, thus linking the gray hair on the nurses' and the servants' heads with the mold on top of a Lenten pie. So again, just the incredible amount of awful. I mean, you see those videos all the time of teens and youths just ganging up on the elderly, and you just hate them so much with such a passion. This is what's going on.
does it in a way that's cool.
Exactly. You want to see her get beaten up. You want them to.
You want Mercutio to keep going because he's just besting her so clearly and so obviously. man,
You
so
want him to
clearly
whip out the
superior.
verbal bat. It's very
You
true.
really do. You really do. Versus just so, gosh, so clearly not following up on it at all. So after that, Mercutio starts singing as the obnoxious little man he is.
Yes, because all people who sing are obnoxious.
I speak as one of them. So continuing on, previous, an old hair whore and an old whore is a very good blend, but a hair that is whore is too much for a score when it whores ere it be spent. So, but a hair that is whore is too much for a score or is too much for the price when it molds ere it be spent. So he's essentially just repeating exactly what he just said in the form of song. We love to see it. We love an artistic little man.
Little big man. We love
Little
him.
big man. So then he stops singing. Romeo, will you come to your father's? We'll go to dinner there. He's given up at this point. He's done. He's nailed his coffin. He's ready to go home. Romeo replies, I will follow you. Mercutio, farewell. Ancient lady, farewell. Singing again, lady, lady, lady. Nope, he had been Volio. Get right on out of there.
So I will mention that,
Please do.
as well as just the incredible indecency which he has shown to the elderly, not elderly, but to his elders, he has called her ancient and fat in the same in the same little bit of wordplay, and that's why we love him. No,
Gosh, I like Mercutio, don't like old people. So I can relate to him. Gosh, we love to see it.
you're gonna be 80 and you're gonna go, God, those old people. I just cannot stand them.
Gosh. So now we are left alone with the nurse and Romeo. The nurse asking Romeo, I pray you, sir, what saucy merchant or insolent fellow was this that was so full of his ropery or roguery? Which we have some wordplay that we will talk about at the end of Romeo's little response here. A gentleman nurse that loves to hear himself talk and will speak more in a minute than he will stand or listen to in a month. So the nurse's use of the word ropery suggests to Romeo another word which is a description of Mercutio, rope ripe. It refers to someone who speaks too much and uses overly elaborate language. Exactly what Mercutio is. And it jokingly stems from the fact that this type of person is so irritating that they are fit to be hung. Romeo implies that Mercutio will speak more in a minute than he will stand to in a month. To which the nurse answers, what?
And to speak anything against me, I'll take him down. And a word lustier than he is, and 20 such jacks, and if I cannot, I'll find those that shall. Scurvy knave! I am none of his flirt gills. I am none of his skeins mates. And just lovely, lovely, lovely Shakespearean insults and all manner of things. And thou must stand by to, and suffer every knave to use me at his pleasure. She's talking to Peter in that instant. But if we take this back, and if he speaks...
Cracks me up here. I apologize. It cracks me up here that the nurse is like, if anyone speaks to me like that, I'll take him down.
Oh, yeah.
As Mercutio just leaves singing in victory.
Not only,
girl, you missed your chance.
Is she apparently, by Mercutio's logic, fat and ancient, but she's lacking a distinct set of balls. So she's just out of the picture, really.
God, that's so funny. That's so
just entirely
funny.
bested by my man over here. Speak anything against me. If he speak anything against me, I'll take him down. Even if he were more arrogant than he is, and 20 such rude fellows, and if I cannot, I'll find those that shall. Despicable knave! I am none of his loose women, I am none of his rascally friends. So basically she's like, that boy should respect me for who I am, and, you know, if I can't take him down, I'll find someone who does. Speaking of, and then she turns to Peter, why didn't you help me out? But, you know...
Like, you just stand by and let
Use me
everyone
at
use me at his pleasure.
Use me at his pleasure. You might, if you are particularly dirty-minded, is an incredibly provocative thing to say. So we have some innuendo there. Another malaprop used by the nurse. Not really used by the nurses. The nurse is rather used by the malaprop more than the nurse uses
That's
malaprop.
accurate.
Another
That's
malaprop
very
by the
accurate.
nurse results in an unintentional innuendo. She meant to accuse Peter of standing by and not allowing every knave to insult her, to abuse me as he pleases, not to use me at his pleasure, with its sexual connotation.
Yeah. And then earlier in that little chunk, she used the word lusty, which in Shakespeare's day could be the nurse means the former, of course, but as Ty mentioned, the malaprop uses her. The innuendos use her. She doesn't really have control over what she's saying to a degree. The meaning of which.
Everybody loves the nurse, and we do.
I love the nurse.
I love the nurse. Don't get me wrong. I love her too much. But she just gets trumped so incredibly aggressively in this scene.
She does not hold gosh. The nurse means, as we said, the former. She means to say arrogant. But it sounds as if she's saying that even Mercutio were more aroused than he is, or that even if Mercutio were more aroused than he is, she would get rid of his erection and those of 20 of his friends. And if she can't, she'll find some girl. And it seems like she's getting back into the pimping business, as we mentioned previously.
Yes, all the geese running around, stealing everyone's erections.
To which Peter replies.
Did you say 2-inch Peter?
I said to which Peter.
That's
Peter
very
is
different.
funnier.
I saw no man use you at his pleasure. If I had, my weapon would have been quickly out, I warrant you. I dare draw as soon as another man, if I see occasion in a good quarrel and the law on my side. More innuendo, as we can readily note. Again, unintentional. So, I saw no man use you at his pleasure. If I had my weapon, take that what you will, it should quickly have been out, I warrant you. I dare draw as soon as another man. I still have that vigor in my step. I've got that pep. If I see occasion in a good quarrel and the law on my side. So, but Peter is also renowned for being cowardly. And he goes, I saw no man use you at his pleasure. Now, there are two possible meanings here. He could, one, use you at his pleasure. This could be a complete understanding, and he's just kind of explaining a situation, or he could be going off of her malapropping and saying, I saw no man try to violate you sexually.
A bit too literally. Am I not mistaken, or did we have innuendo in like the first scene of the play?
I'm gonna need you to repeat that. You cut out.
I hate that. Am I not mistaken, or did we see this exact same weapon draw out innuendo very early in the play, like the first scene?
That's true, and we'll see it again in, I believe, if not the next scene, the scene after. But yes, it's very, very common.
It's just an easy innuendo to fall on. It's been more than 5 lines. We need it.
God knows when there's a testy wench around my vexed step, I draw my blade.
Gosh. The nurse replies to Peter, now before God, I am so vexed that every part about me I am so irritated that every part about me Again, we have an inadvertent innuendo by the nurse. Are you sensing a theme?
No.
Perhaps. Well, you should.
Explain it to me.
She means that Mercutio has made her has a sexual connotation to which I don't feel I need to explain.
Oh my god. Oh, the vapors.
Scurvy knave! And then she turns to Romeo. Pray you, sir, a word, and as I told you, my young lady bid me inquire you out. My young lady Juliet begged me to come find you. What she bid me say, I will keep to myself. I'm not going to tell you what she wanted me to tell you. But first, let me tell you, if you should lead her in a fool's paradise, as they say, it were a very gross kind of behavior, as they say. For the gentlewoman is young, and therefore, if you should deal double or double-cross with her, Truly it were, or would be, an ill thing to be offered to any gentlewoman, and a very wicked dealing. So essentially that if you hurt her, I'll hurt her. Treat her well, don't double cross her, be a gentleman for this gentlewoman. To which Romeo
replies and goes, "Nurse, commend me to thy lady and mistress. I protest unto thee," and then he gets cut off. But this opening segment, although not much in itself, starts a long chain reaction, which leads into a very aggressive play on the word interest. Not interest, protest. Very different words. "Nurse, commend me, give my respects to the lady and mistress. I protest, I swear unto thee," and gets cut off immediately. "Good heart and a faith, I will tell her as much. Lord, Lord, she will be a joyful woman." So it goes, Romeo tries to follow what she says and goes, "No, no, no, I would never." Nurse cuts him off midway and goes, "Oh, well, that's good," even though he doesn't complete his protest. To which Romeo says, "What wilt thou tell her, nurse? Thou did not mark thither. Thou did not listen to me. So what will you mark? What will you tell her?" The nurse says, "I will tell her, sir, that you do protest, which, as I take it, is a gentlemanlike offer to marry." So protest means to swear an oath as well. There's a double meaning there. And when he says, "I swear, I protest unto thee," she takes it and runs with it and goes, "Oh, he swears an oath to marry her. How excellent." And so protest throughout this 4-little-line segment. The word protest originally meant to speak in support of something, as I'm sure most people have recognized it. To swear that you are what you are about to say is true. Romeo starts to swear about something, and he's abruptly cut off by the nurse. She assumed that Romeo was about to swear his love for Juliet. Swearing that you loved someone was essentially an offer of marriage, and that's how the nurse interprets Romeo's protest. So there's really not too much to it. Nurse is just a little bit giddy.
And yeah, she's a little too overexcited, a little too eager to tell Juliet that Romeo's going to marry her, and in that, she doesn't fully listen to Romeo. It doesn't speak much, and is
Wouldn't
just...
it be a plot twist if it was like, "What, marry?" What? No.
It would be really funny, and half the play would be...
Yeah.
Like, the play would just be done at that
scene.
point. And scene. He's like, "Oh, then I'll tell her. Tell her what? That
What?
I want nothing to do with her. I protest unto thee that I will never speak to her." Like,
I had a bit too much wassail, and I was I don't know what I was doing, but yeah.
Gosh. Romeo replies, "Bid her devise some means to shrift this afternoon, and there she shall at Friar Lawrence's shall be shrived and married. Here's for thy pains," and he offers her money. Bid her devise or invent some means to come to shrift or confession this afternoon, and there she shall at Friar Lawrence's cell be absolved of sins and married. So again, going off of the nurse's, "Oh, you're gonna marry her." She's like, "Okay, tell Juliet to find some way to make it to confession tonight, and Friar Lawrence will absolve her of her sins, and we will be married." And then he attempts to pay her for her duties, her services here. Gosh, we're getting to the end of it. It's a long scene, but we're making it through.
We're chugging away. At which point she says,
"No, truly, sir, not a penny." Romeo, "Go to, I say you shall. Or go on, take the money. I reward you," so to speak.
And keep in mind, she doesn't say no a second time. She's like, "Oh, mine. I'll take that."
"The nurse this afternoon, sir? Well, she shall be there." Not much there. Romeo goes on a little bit of I wouldn't say speech, but a good rabble here. "And stay, good nurse, behind the abbey wall, with our servant shall be with thee, and bring thee cords made like a tackled stair, or rope ladder, which to the high topgallant topsail of my joy must be my convoy in the secret night. Farewell, be trustworthy, and I'll repay thy pains. Farewell, commend me to my mistress." Which I believe is another very well-known quote from this play, unless I'm perhaps mistaken. I've just read it too many times.
What?
But
Commend me to my mistress.
Commend me to my mistress. Yeah.
Doesn't he say that a good bit throughout this play?
He says it a couple times. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he says it a couple times in the scene alone. But
a lot of commending going on.
Not much to go on with here. Really, just giving her instructions. She's like, hey, go hide behind the alley wall. My servant, he'll be with you shortly. He'll bring you cords that are kind of like a rope ladder, which, to the topsail of my joy, will be my convoy in the night. This is how I will get to Juliet at night. Farewell, be trustworthy, and I'll repay thy pain. So, don't speak of this. Be a good little nurse, and I'll repay you for it. Farewell, commend me to thy mistress.
Excellent. The nurse says, Now God in heaven bless thee. Hark you, sir. What sayest thou, my dear nurse? Is your man secret? Did you ne'er hear say that two may keep counsel, putting one away? Okay, so, is your man secret, as we've already discussed? Is your servant secret? What sayest thou, my dear nurse, is your servant secret? And the allusion here, two may keep counsel, putting one away. This proverbial phrase means that two people can keep a secret if one of them is killed. So, she doesn't want to die.
Keep a secret if one of them is dead.
You alright?
It's a song.
Is that a song?
It's a song.
Is it?
Yeah, isn't it? It's the theme song to what? Vampire Diaries, one of those shows.
Oh man, I have no idea.
In my pocket, taking this one to the grave, 'cause two can't keep a secret if one of them is dead. I think it's Pretty Little Liars.
I was not aware of this, but
it's a whole intro.
On to Shakespeare.
Let me look this up.
A little bridge from the madness. I warrant thee, my man's as true as steel. I guarantee you, my man is as trustworthy
it's Pretty
as
Little
steel.
Liars.
Which, as we all of us know, is a very trustworthy metal. Very trustworthy. Nurse launches into quite the thing. Would you like to take it, or shall I?
I would love to take it. Thank you.
Take it.
I'm gonna take it by the reins.
Just.
Well, sir, my mistress is the sweetest lady. Lord, when 'twas a little prating thing, or chattering thing. Oh, there's a nobleman in town, one Paris, that would happily lay knife aboard, but she, good soul, has gladly see a toad, a very toad, as see him. I anger her sometimes and tell her that Paris is the properer man, but I'll warrant you, when I say so, she looks as pale as any sheet in the versler whole world. Doth not Rosemary and Romeo begin both with a letter? So taking that back, would fain lay knife aboard. This phrase refers to an old. When eating at a common table in a pub or inn, you place your personal knife on the table to claim your spot for the meal. But the nurse is yet again making another unintentional sexual innuendo. Paris would happily board Juliet with his knife, would happily claim Juliet with his knife, you know?
With his blade.
It's an innuendo. You get it. Context clues, my people.
Penetration, gang. What?
Never say that again.
Can we get a trend going? Hashtag penetration.
I beg you, never.
Instagram, if ever you tag the podcast, hashtag penetration gang. Let's get it going.
Don't do that, please. So she ends her little, not speech, but her little chattering on here. Doth not Rosemary and Romeo begin with a letter? Romeo, I, nurse, what of that? Both with an R. Ah, mocker, a joker. That's the dog's name. R is for the... No, I know it begins with some other letter, and she hath the prettiest sententious of it, and you and Rosemary that it would do here. So, as we mentioned before, the nurse is not very educated. She is quite illiterate, could you say? And we are. So, being illiterate, the nurse only knows the sounds of words, not their spelling. To her, the words Romeo and Rosemary don't sound like they start with an R. She associates that sound with dogs, to R meant to growl. She starts to say that R is also for the arse, but stops herself. And then...
we have sententious
Sententious. What a
So
word.
here, the nurse really means that Juliet makes pretty sentences with the words Romeo and rosemary, the fragrant plant. But instead of sentences, she says sententious, which is an adjective meaning pithy or full of meaning. So, just again, saying every single word in the dictionary.
So in this scene, we have Mercutio and Romeo being a lot of wordplay, really showing off their education. And then we have the nurse coming in, being illiterate as she is, completely misunderstanding everything everyone's saying, not entirely sure what she's saying herself. And Shakespeare does a really solid job at showcasing the difference between the classes here, with Romeo and Mercutio both being noblemen of themselves, and the nurse not being that. So it's very obvious what he's doing here, showing the juxtaposition, I guess. I don't know if that's exactly the right word, between, Benvolio, Romeo, and Mercutio, and the nurse. Another thing is another thing in this scene, the nurse speaking in prose, I want to say pretty much the entire scene. So was Peter. But Romeo was speaking in verse, which is not always used to show a class difference, but I think it is a lot in this play. I just wanted to put that out there. We've got the last 4 lines of the scene here. Would you like to take it away?
I'll go Romeo, Peter, you go nurse.
Perfect.
Commend me to thy lady.
I 1,000 times, Peter.
Anon.
Or he's coming. Not what you want to say in a playful. No.
Hashtag penetration gang. Let's get it going.
Let's not. I beg you, let's not.
I want all of the comments to say hashtag penetration gang.
Can they? No, I will delete every single one of them. I will delete every single one of them. And then the nurse ending the scene before and apace. So quickly. And they exit, and that is that incredibly complex scene. Ruby, do not. Ruby, no.
What's Ruby doing to us?
We've got some penetration gang in the chat.
Oh man, which is a glorious segue into hello folks. I see you. I see you. My eyes are glued to you. That is, if you are watching us from YouTube. I do see you there. The light of the screen illuminating all of the little details of your face. A beautiful face it is, might I say, if I'm not being too forward.
You're being really forward. What you're
doing. Mind if we... Oh, never mind. But if you'd like to hear the end of that sentence I was just about to say, you should join our Discord, where we host this very podcast. You can join our other listeners in listening to the uncut versions of every show, as well as quality premium subscriber content, which will be on the way shortly. We love you folks.
Yeah.
Be sure to check us. All of our social media.
Check out the Instagram.
All of them.
Check out the Instagram. We've gotten pretty active on there recently. TikTok, trying to get that booming shortly. The website, just anywhere you stream your podcast. YouTube, please. We need those views.
That's very true.
Watch it twice. Watch it on YouTube. Listen to it where you stream your podcasts. We need all of the views we can get, people.
That's very true. And, well, especially since we're trying to hit the big bucks of Raycon and Audible, as all good people try to do.
I'm trying to get Audible so bad.
We're trying to get Audible.
Us, we beg you.
Please, God, we love books sometimes. And
no, we love books. Have you seen my bookshelf? It's over. Audible, please.
Positively. So here's the deal, folks. I'm going to need you, if you are watching us on the YouTube right now, to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It does wonders with the algorithm, and if you're still around, that means you enjoy us enough, or you've just left us on. So we would also like you to comment, don't dislike.
Click that notification bell so you know every time we upload videos. I feel like every YouTuber ever. Like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, punch it, beat it to a bloody pulp.
I want you to take a bat to that thing. Grab your trusty crowbar, wherever it may be, take the subscriber button behind the woodshed, and beat that thing. But once you've done that, be sure to leave a comment, because, believe it or not, that is actually what plays the algorithm the most and will recommend our content to more people. Hashtag penetration game.
Yeah.
And, yeah,
No,
go check.
this is not a thing. Stop trying to make this a thing.
Hashtag
It's not
pen
gonna be a
game.
thing.
So, go check us out on all of our social media. And, I believe that's it. Am I... Folks, if you're trying to start a podcast, two little people with a dream, one big person, one little person,
I hate you.
with a dream, you should check out Anchor. It's a totally free service which allows you to make and distribute your podcast totally free. We use it, we love it, and we gain money when you listen to this ad. So sometimes the best things in life are free. Go download, or rather set up an account with Anchor today. We love you, folks.
Start that podcast you've been thinking about for a couple now. I know you have been. Everybody has been. So do it. Check out all the places, and we'll see you next week with more Romeo and Juliet.
Good night, bye, folks.